My next-door neighbor, Emily Grave, gave her poodle a bath on too cold a day. The poor dog shivered, shook, and cried out, but there wasn't a doggy hairdryer about. Then all of a sudden, Miss Grave lit up. The microwave, she thought, would dry up the pup. So she placed Wet Henry on the carousel tray and smiled as he rotated in an auto show way. He yapped and he barked and then he blew up. Miss Grave learned the lesson. Never microwave your pup.
In the hazy grip of fever dreams, our minds take flight, or so it seems, to distant lands and long-lost times, where memories hide and secrets chime. Snippets of a past long gone flash before our eyes, then move on, leaving with but a glimpse of what our subconscious minds imprint. A repressed memory, locked away, now comes to light in shades of gray. A puzzle piece that doesn't fit, but still a part of me, every bit. Fever dreams, elusive and wild, lead me to a place where the truth is filed, in fragments scattered far and wide, waiting to be pierced together inside. So I'll keep dreaming, feverishly, and trust my mind implicitly. For in the end, I know what's true, and will reveal. Video games, hey y'all! Have you ever had a word that was on the tip of your tongue? A thought or memory that was locked away that you know is there, and desperate as you try to move the gears in your mind, only the smoke remains. As a small child, there was a game that left such an imprint on me. Sitting in front of my father's Windows 95 gateway computer, this disc would mysteriously arrive in my possession. It was his animated platformer horror title, where you played as a small boy in glasses fighting with nothing but a yo-yo. They built the levels in a nonsensical fashion. A random door would lead to another world of unimaginable horrors. The monsters would be based on nightmares of my own, almost a reflection of my personal insecurities. Everything about this game was designed with the express intent of causing me as much distress as possible. With tears in my eyes, I begged my father to get rid of this game. But even just a few days of interaction, the game stayed with me all these years. In subtle ways, my taste would shift into the more bizarre and horror-focused. The character models of Psychonauts would excite me with their odder proportions and coloring. And my cartoons of choice usually leading to darker outcomes and more depressive tones. But try as I might to remember this game from my early childhood, it would always just come to me as this hazy fever dream. I would only have the loosest of memories, a character model out of focus, a song remembered incorrectly, just flashes of the faintest memory. In my attempt to communicate the game to others, I sounded so vague that I could be describing countless titles. Boy number one would tell me, of course, the game I'm describing is Earthbound. The story of Ness, the psychic boy with a yo-yo. Narrative even matched. Earthbound dealt heavily into childhood trauma and created uncomfortable atmosphere. However, I remembered a platformer, and as much as I love Earthbound, it is my second favorite game of all time. That was not our mystery title. Boy number two had a completely different suggestion. Heart of Darkness for the PlayStation 1. Here was a scary, intense platformer, starring a young boy. The experience played into the horrors of feeling small, and some of the CG cutscene work honestly could be traumatic on its own. Jesus Christ! But once again, I knew this could not be the true answer. The art style was vastly different, and there was no yo-yo. There wasn't a chance this was the same game. All hope was lost, and I had fully given up on my search. Then boy number three would arrive. Boy number three was actually a woman, but I'm saying boy for the consistency. Boy number three suggested a mixed multimedia game from Windows 95, Nightmare Ned.
When the moon is full and golden and bathtubs fill the air and they're partly full of water, you should say a prayer. 'Cause we have this wicked pastime, it's always been our dream. It's to drop electric stuff down there and watch you scream.
Nightmare Ned was a 1997 adventure game developed by Creative Capers Entertainment. which was actually an animation studio that had never developed a full video game before. Oh my god, it's Eggs of Steel all over it! They're most known for their work with Disney, creating beautiful flash and hand-animated sequences to delight audiences. I'm happy to report Creative Capers are still thriving, with many of the original minds behind Nightmare Ned still working today. Inspired by the success Disney tapped into with The Nightmare Before Christmas, the goal was to create something a little bit more of a darker nature. The game opens with our young protagonist, Ned Needlemeyer, discovering he is home alone for the night. Like any child without adult supervision, he eats junk food and plays video games. What a rebel! But lightning strikes and unlocks the fear inside the young boy's heart, and the terror becomes reality. You start the game in the twisted form of Ned's quilt. From the very beginning of the game, it etches its way into your mind. Ned himself, a 2D 90s style cartoon character, in an uncomfortable 3D atmosphere. We've entered Wonderland, but we have 5 doors before us, each with their own unique monster, capitalizing on the child's fear. The 5 worlds: the graveyard, the fear of loss and death; medical, the failures of the body, and the position of vulnerability; the school, where our peers and structures all exist to judge our worth; the attic, lost memories of the family, our bloodlines and home; and the bathroom, the never-ending cycle of piss. And our tumbling down the rabbit hole, Nightmare Ned actually finds itself uncomfortable even to adults with its bizarre structure. We enter each world with nothing but our yo-yo and Windows 95 platforming skills, bouncing through beds of baddies, battling beasts and boogeymen beneath the bleak abyss. We find reflections of the inner horrors of the mind. Because of its slower feel, the game is more focused on non-sequitur events and ideas. In the graveyard, you might fight a dog cat. Later in the same level, you'll turn into a zombie and get hugged so hard you'll end up in the background. Creativity fuels this title throughout, never repeating the same idea twice, making its short runtime even more memorable. This doesn't just apply to enemies, but gameplay styles and visual variety. You get the sense that Creative Capers knew on some level this game could serve as a dartboard for idea after idea. But the element that actually makes the game feel uncomfortable, even as an adult, is its structure. Doors can serve as entry points to other worlds, each with their own unique transition into separate realities. On first playthrough, this makes navigation almost an impossible task. The greatest horror can use liminal spaces to create a feeling of unease. If the pathways before you remain unpredictable, then how can one ground themselves in this reality? It isn't until you learn the proper rule set that this anxiety can diminish. Each world offers a series of puzzles, and as you slowly chip away at the challenges, more of the monster guarding the world will reveal. Nightmare Ned is a short title. Because of this, it's best to view each world individually. The graveyard, the perfect start to our horror adventure. Death is the original fear, after all. With a sky inspired by the works of Van Gogh, what stands out the most is the flat, painterly look. There's no 3D in this section. In fact, many of the outlines are emboldened into the screen. What stands out the most are 3 specific sections. We have a family grieving, mourning the loss of someone very important. Ned himself opens the casket and jumps directly inside, almost as if he himself becomes the loss the family mourns. Inside, farther down, we see Ned's mother and father as zombies. They attack Ned, almost as if in this reality, Ned is the outsider. To his own family, I'm doing a thing. Final area of note is this small room with a girl sitting in the dark with hard bars surrounding the windows. The game reveals the horror of this world as Ned fearing the loss of his grandfather. And while it does line up with the monster itself, it doesn't quite line up with all the actual horrors of the world. Our next nightmare of choice is the school, the great equalizer. At this point, it occurs to me how closely in tone Nightmare Ned is to the work of Jonan Vasquez. The students have an uncomfortable Invader Zim quality to them, and with that environment fueling mental distress. The school also serves as this amazing crockpot of visual ideas. In one locker, we fight against multiple real stop-motion animations, each looking more fantastical than the last, with a complexity in the moment that rivals the Neverhood. With the battles behind us, we reveal a diorama of distorted American history. Or, I think that's what it is. Please make fun of me in the comments if I'm wrong. Each area of the school belongs to a different phobia. In one section, oops, I'm naked. In another, the principal threatens us with a call to our parents. But by far, the coolest area belongs to the algebra song.
Good morning. Now open your math book to page 999, please. Let's look at the first problem. Trini is carrying 200 people going 80 miles an hour halfway down a 92-mile track. Trini is carrying 200 ducks and doing 40 plus 1 mile an hour every time they hear one quack.
The soundtrack in Nightmare Ned is an unbelievable highlight, with every song not only capturing but elevating the emotions of the player. Jim of Seattle has specifically written the vocal tracks that all stick to the mind in fun and comfortable fashion. The algebra song specifically must have been a treat to create, because in 2016, the song was remade for the album Both the Planet Frank and Chet Lambert Show. That's a name. The fear I get is Ned's discomfort for failing in school, the judgment for his inabilities with the rambling of the song, feeling impossible to follow. Possible ADHD, or just not be able to adequately perform. And while I lost the footage, the big boss turned out to be a school bully. And World 3, Medical, the failures of the body in all of its forms. Medical is actually split between the dentist's office and the ER. Stop me if this sounds a little intense for a Disney game. Ned is tied to a stretcher, trying to avoid the doctors literally attempting to pull his internal organs one by one and placing them in jars, where you must spin his entire body on a wheel, hoping to land on his organs, which are to be reinserted back into his body. I'm sorry, this one might have been the reason as a child I kept crying. The other section is dental work, with the boss herself being revealed to be Ned's dentist. There's not much to read into this one, other than it's pretty violent to just have Ned be stabbed by drills. The next world is the one I always fear at 5:30 in the morning, the bathroom. Ned seems the most uncomfortable with this topic.
Ain't no gorilla, ain't no grizzly bear. I'm what you're gonna be someday.
No way!
So fuzzy and so furry everywhere. That's right, my boy, and you'll have so much hair that your mom won't even know ya. She'll scream, "Get away from me!"
She will?
Yeah, and that's the truth on just how growing up is gonna be. Bet you wish you were dreaming.
Yeah.
No chance you are gonna be 12 feet tall.
Oh no!
And everyone will look like tiny ants, much like the Eiffel Tower wearing pants.
Ah.
Well, you're so shrimpy now, kid. Don't you want to grow up tall?
Not that tall.
Well, that's how growing up will be, and that's not all.
It's not?
Puberty, the terrible evolution from child to adult, as we inherit the traits of our biological sex. The exaggeration of the worst attributes and denial of the changing of form. The final nightmare home, the horror itself, is a little less clear than in other worlds, but its focus on art, especially towards the beginning, leads me to believe that Ned views his own family as an art exhibit, never to directly interact. The expectation of the legacy that is left before him is the show. There's one specific horror that stayed with me as a child. Snail, and being salted by Ned's aunt. A picture can speak 1,000 words, but some can leave us speechless. At the climax of the game, we team up with our monsters to fight the true villain, ourselves. And with one final blow, we awake. And this would be the end of our little tale, but many questions. What was the overall point to Nightmare Ned? What did some of the symbolism mean? How is there still so much video left when you've beaten the game? Well, what if I were to tell you that maybe there was an entire animated series of Nightmare Ned?
Good night, Ned.
Sweet dreams, honey.
Premiering before the game's release, Ned was an ABC animated series made in collaborations from the efforts of the game. Similar to the Pokemon anime, who would take set pieces and locations from the Game Boy titles, the show would grab ideas from moments of the game and further elaborate on them for future episodes. The show would only air once in its original premiere, with parents citing the show as traumatic for children of its time. This might be the only cartoon opening where a child is just screaming no over and over again. Episodes would dedicate themselves to ideas from the game. For example, one episode would focus entirely on Ned's fear of dentistry, while another episode would focus entirely on one moment in the game and turn it into an elaborate episode based off of Ned being nude at school? Oh no! I'm starting to understand why this show didn't get a season 2. Somehow, and thank God, the show did not end up as lost media, as YouTuber archivists have rescued the entire series with VHS recordings. But there's one specific episode that I want to discuss. Oh, I see you there, staring at the name of the video, asking when I was going to do it. Well, that time is now. On June the 7th, 1997, the episode Girl Trouble premiered. We open with Ned going to the restroom, but things are a little different from what he originally remembers.
Hi, Ned. Hi, Joni. Hi, Joni! No. Don't listen to those nasty boys, Ned. You're not like them. You're different. You're sensitive, like a delicate flower.
Ned, of course, being our classic narcoleptic, falls asleep, where he was always a she.
If I were a girl, I wouldn't be wearing these,
Here you are.
I'm a girl. A girl. A girl.
Oh, don't fret, child. You're just a girl now, but soon you'll blossom into a beautiful woman like myself.
There's one specific scene that's hard for trans audiences. It may be a little too relatable.
So, Nedra, your mother tells me you got sent home from school today. Your mother also tells me you think you're a boy.
I am a boy, and my name is Ned.
Okay, Nedra. Ned. Honey?
Oh, don't worry, dear. All girls go through this phase.
I am not going through a phase. I am a boy.
Whatever you say, Nedra.
However, with the switch, she finally discovers her innermost. Honestly, there's something scary here. We're gonna call it strength.
The power. Control. At last, I understand. Women rule men. They rule the world. The universe. La, 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 la. I love being a girl. Whee! Huh? Dear Diary, I just had the strangest dream. It made me feel kind of funny.
Look, this video didn't originally start as a trans video, but originally I just wanted to make a video about Nightmare Ned. But this episode of my research, I couldn't stop thinking about it. The fear of puberty, the loss of family when coming out, the locked up girl behind the bars, the fear of the body and the medical procedures, one's own home being a source of terror. And it's in that moment I realized the fever dream. This overwhelming tip of the tongue thought that so clouds this game is also the perfect way to... Who's that Pokemon? A trans bitch. Hello everybody, this is Ice from Ice Crash Radio, she, they, thank you. Originally I had no intention of putting my face on YouTube. I was going to be one of those behind the camera kind of deals. Considering the whole not passing thing, you need people like me. Because what you need is somebody that doesn't necessarily fall into the status quo, who walks into the room and says, "How you doing?" This video has been fully hijacked and turned into a trans video. See, I don't know if you saw the name of the video, like the title. You should have seen this somewhat coming. So, stop me if you've heard this one before. You wake up as a small child and you look in the mirror while brushing your teeth, and the stranger who copies your every movement stares back at you. You don't want to reflect. You have to get to school. You hear some girls in the class talking about the latest Sailor Moon. You begin to speak. Lock. What were you wanting to talk about? Doesn't matter. It's show and tell. The prettiest girl of class is about to give a presentation, and you must be in love. I mean, you must be, right? You keep thinking about her while she stands up there. Her voice, her fashion, her vibe. You wish you could be up there with her. You wish you could look like that. But the frustrating part is, in this entire experience, until the last 2 years, I wasn't able to verbalize it. I can't tell you I knew I was trans, but I always knew. The fever dream, the tip of the tongue, the burning thought of the mind, rapidly ready to explain itself, but to no avail. And I'll tell you, that shit sucked. Rather than verbalizing what I already needed, I took a more self-destructive path. It's not that I needed help, it's that I'm worthless. I could never be enough, for anyone, especially myself. I locked into how the world perceives me, and if that's the case, well, why am I here? Just to suffer? So many years of self-deprecation, mutilation, and words that rhyme with Asian. I would sit on the edge of the chair, asking myself what could I do to solve my problems. A lot of people used to comment that I seemed unhappy, and it was true. I genuinely lived in a cycle of self-destruction. Every single day, I'd sit in my chair and think about all the ways that I hated myself. Would never be the subject, the fever dream, the one thought in my brain I wouldn't be allowed to have. I was stupid. I wasn't attractive. I didn't like anything about me. I had no sense of fashion. I probably should die. I've had the thought about killing myself so often. I think about the fact that the world is so cruel, so insanely cruel to people who hurt in general, that's always the targets that we prey upon. Trying our best to find the day-to-day meaning, trying our best to survive in a world that doesn't really want you to. I was expected to fall in very specific lines. I was a gamer. I was smart, they said. I knew video games, so obviously I must be a tech head. I have a good voice. I fucked that one up. A radio voice. I should do radio. Ergo, Ice Crash Radio. No matter how many times I tried, I didn't really see value in living. Living to me felt like one of those things you're supposed to do out of obligation. I just have to finish my dinner, which is a great motivation for living. I have a dinner plate given to me, and I just feel like I have to get through it. If I can get through whatever the fuck life is, I end life dead, and then either way, I end up not having to deal with it anymore. Unfortunately, if you decide to go down that mark, time interferes. The depression that you feel, the pain you feel, continues to grow. And you just find yourself in a warped view. A world that everything around you is collapsing until you break and shatter on the floor, diminish, demolish every olish that words can have. About 1 year, 5 months ago, in tears, I sat in this chair, this very chair. I knew what I wanted. I knew what I had to do. And I got on the phone and I said, "Doctor, doctor, give me the news. I got a bad case of a wanting boobs." The next part of the story I cannot communicate better than my experiences with the indie title known as An Outcry. The lovely and brilliant creator of this gem, Quinn K, nominated for Independent Game Festival and winner of the Nickelodeon Kids' Choice Awards. Quinn's masterpiece does better communicating this experience more than I can put into words. This is not a review. Hell, it's not even a summary of an outcry, but I will be visually spoiling the first half of the game just to give a comparison piece, but talking about my own experiences rather than the game itself. If you're interested, either watch Mara's video over yonder, or better yet, go ahead and actually support Quinn on Steam or itch.io. I figure if you're this far in, you'll probably like it. At the beginning of Transition, I didn't really have a game plan. I just started taking the medication. Boy moding was the name of the game, and while I felt so much relief almost immediately from my form, it didn't take long for those joys to become a nightmare. Dead naming would be a daily occurrence because I couldn't feel comfortable enough sharing my name. And regardless of medication, to the outside world, I was still fully in line with the form people expected me to be. 6 months in, I still wasn't fully out. I gave myself so much stress, I literally had to go to the ER for a stomach ulcer. And even then, I'm just constantly told, "Sir," over and over again. No one's fault. But anxiety had only increased as my body felt more okay, but suffocated. Slowly but surely, I finally came out, publicly and fully, as myself, in 2022. That wasn't fun. People looked at me with judgment, or at best humored me. To this day, I still have trust issues. I can't tell who's actually supportive, and who's trying to talk down to me. My neighbors looked at me as a freak, and my confidence felt like an impossible climb. People would stop to tell me I was a freak, as a matter of fact. Hell, I've literally had my car followed and was threatened for my life. And as somebody who spent a lifetime hating herself, all these eyes of judgment told me maybe I was right to. And so once again, I fell. I fell into a deep hole and gave up. I asked work to give me a position away from the public. I squint when I look in the mirror, even though I was happier with my form. The worst part is, I was genuinely happier. I had replaced a lot of the self-hatred with fear and the old habits of letting other people dictate what my internal thoughts should be. All the while, media outlet after media outlet and voices decrying my own existence as woke continued to add fear.
In the stupidest news of the day, corporate America has basically decided that they're going to woke signal every so often and hope that conservatives don't get upset. This is the way that it works. So if you look at market studies, what they tend to show is that left-wingers buy based on their perception of how a brand acts. Now, they don't actually buy based on their perception of how a brand acts in terms of it being left-wing. So long as a corporation is just not openly right-wing, they assume that it's left-wing. But if a corporation ever is perceived as right-wing in any way, this means that the left boycotts it. There have been Harvard Business School studies showing just this. Meanwhile,
Because everything about this decision fundamentally is not what I wanted to do. I didn't want to be seen. I wanted to blend in. I had no intention of dealing with the ramifications that came with it. I wanted to feel like myself, but I knew whatever version of myself existed would never be enough for people. And I'm not enough for people. I exist in a space right now where I look at myself in the mirror, and it's different from what you see. I hate how I look, and I fully am aware, and I'm sure the comments are going to fully let me know how I look, but it's not about that, is it? I take my medication for the first time, and I feel good. I feel great. I feel like the first time that I'm myself, and I'm traveling forward. I'm finally feeling like my body doesn't hurt the same way. It starts to feel corrected. I can't explain to you what it's like. Imagine having a headache for 30 years and finally discovering Advil. At this point, there's no physical change. I'm not dressed up differently. There's nothing. The only difference is that I feel better. It's already working, and it's base level. and my body begins to morph and change shape and form into what you see before you, which granted at 1 year, 4 months is probably not where I'd like it to be, but I'll tell you, it feels okay. For the first time, I don't hate myself. In fact, I'm a fucking bitch. We live at a time where existence is about to be outlawed. State by state have different laws all trying to impact trans people's lives. State by state, we have new laws getting in the way of our own existence. Going outside is a struggle beyond the social coping. I may be fucking arrested for it. Let's say you're a child from Florida. At this moment, we have a law saying you can't say gay in school. If you say you're trans in school, you're gonna get in trouble. Strike one. But on top of that, we also have laws now where the school is required to tell your parents. So if you say you're trans and you want a different set of pronouns, that's going straight home. But even if, hypothetically, you live in a home that actually loves you, the government will literally take you away from your parents. So we exist right now, at this moment of time, where a child, a trans child, if you even think that you're trans, you may be taken away from your home and sent to somebody who doesn't love you entirely just because, well, you had that thought. The parent is required to hate their child. The school is required to ruin you. And many, many kids are about to be taken from their homes and from their families. What gives me hope is knowing that children are also watching these children being taken from their homes. 20 years from now, I have a feeling that most kids watching their friends being pulled away from their parents, it's going to be a little bit of a red flag and maybe impact some of these laws that we put inside. I grew up with the privilege of not knowing I was allowed to transition. So imagine how fucking hard it must be to know that you can and not be allowed the option. The cruelty on display is fascist. We've entered the world of genocide. There are 9 stages of genocide. At the time of this filming, we are between stages 8 and 9. I'm going to quote my friend Sophie on this, paraphrasing a little bit. But ultimately, if your goal is to ruin and demolish trans lives from the existence of today, there's a handy guide to doing so. Pay attention, kids. Number 1. Classification. We're long past this, but I knew what a tranny was way before I knew what a trans person was. Stage 2. Symbolization. Not allowing trans people to change their gender markers or names effectively accounts as this step, but also the amount of people that literally continue to go sir and dead name as a mark against you for what you stand for. You will be ever known as that dead name. You will ever be known for what causes you pain and distress. And they serve that with a smile, knowing that it breaks you at your core. Stage 3. Discrimination. Again, we're long past this step. Transgender folks have been fighting for their rights for years. Until recently, we had to go through grueling processes to get our gender-affirming care. But in certain parts of this country, you're not even allowed to be who you are. The option of even opting into being transgender is taken from you, from people that hate you for the idea that the thought has even entered your head. Stage 4. Dehumanization. The Republican Party does this on the regular. The media engages in this. They use terms like gender critical and transgenderism, referring to us as a plague. The idea that every single trans person is a groomer, or if you're a child, then you are broken and you need to be pulled away from your parents. The idea is there's not one possible way that you could be trans without it being something wrong with you. You can't be trans without also serving as a mistake. Stage 5. Organization. Look up 2,600 pages of hate, a collection of leaked emails from anti-trans expert witnesses, right-wing lawmakers, and consecutive legal groups. The organization and the structures used to hurt my people has only gotten more and more clear and significant. Stage 6. polarization. The UK media is actually full of this, especially the BBC. In the US, Fox News regularly spreads propaganda to spread hate and incite messages of that cruelty, of that hatred about trans people. The rest of the media doesn't exactly try to fight back against this. For the most part, the best case scenario we can find as people in the media is something to be observed, something to be treated in the backdrop, but never to star, never to feel true empathy with, only to serve in the greater conversation. We're a political idea. We're not human. We don't bleed when we get cut. We simply fade away. Stage 7, preparation. We actually see this in stage 5. All the prepared, all the organization, the cruelty on display, just ready to harm us. Stage 8, persecution. Look at how illegal it is to be alive, in existence, state by state. It is getting harder and harder. Persecution is definitely real. And stage 9, elimination. I have 2 messages, one for the allies and then one for people like me. The allies who are watching from afar, who observe our pain, our destruction, and think, wow, the world sucks. Come here. Come here, you fuck. Right now we live at a time where every single one of us is watching the daily news as we sit there and think, wow, the world is hard and scary, but you fucks could actually make a difference if you did the bare minimum. We live in a modern day AIDS crisis. There are people dying on the floor, and you are just watching it and walking on throughout your day. Look, a vote is important, but there's shit you can do now. There's more important things. Piss people off. Throw yourself at support of the people you care about and try your best to send words of encouragement or give a middle finger to the people that are actively harming and eradicating life. Kids are being removed from their parents. Pick up the phone and start dialing, you fucking bitch! Pick up the goddamn phone and start dialing. And to all fellow trans people and anybody that doesn't really fit in the line, the skies are dark. We don't know what tomorrow's going to bring. Can't promise anything. A very real chance in a month I may not even have my job anymore. I may just be a refugee. Depending on how certain laws pass, I just don't feel any security or any safety. Forget representation. I don't even feel like I have a place in this world anymore. Very isolated. Very lonely. I think a lot of us hurt. I'm here to tell you, it doesn't matter. I can't promise a better tomorrow. I can't promise the laws are going to work out or that the future is bright. I honestly don't know what tomorrow is going to hold. We all know that it's going to get a lot harder before it gets better. And a lot of us feel alone. Number 1, take my arm. Take my blood. Because ultimately, no matter what happens on this planet, it is a shared. The pain that you are feeling is the same pain that I am feeling. It is the same pain that so many of us feel. We wake up in the morning in pain. We go to sleep in pain. We don't know what tomorrow holds. And we suffer at the hands of people that view us as objects, view us as side characters, never to star. We have each other. We all carry a weight on our back, but we all carry it. I think it's important to remember that family isn't the people you're born into. family is the people that love you unconditionally. And I fucking love each and every single one. Every single one of the unconformers. Every single one of the people that exist outside of the spaces of what is conceived normal. You are my family. I don't give a shit what my fucking form looks like. I've given them enough time, and I've given enough people every ounce of what my inner existence based off of those activities. Fuck our form. Fuck the way we are. I don't give a shit if you're on HRT 1 year, 5 years, and you can't fucking start because the healthcare restrictions won't let. We don't fight this for ourselves, and we don't fight this for others. We fight this for our inner child who hurt for all those years, knowing what they wanted. This is our world.
Dear Diary, I just had the strangest dream. It made me feel kind of funny.